Let's talk about the real deal. Jessica Dean. She is a powerhouse lawyer. They all are, but I've known Jessica for a very long time. I think almost 15 years. It's really important to understand sort of how these cases are worked up. What does it mean? And watch the family go through this because it's not easy for the family. But I think the case study of yours is really important, Jessica. Please share and welcome Jessica to the podium.
I'm really honored to be here. There's some truly incredible people doing incredible things. I get to try cases and represent really neat people for a living. I feel incredibly lucky. And one of my favorite was Rita Chapman. She was exposed to brakes and she was exposed to talc. And both those companies said her exposures were small. They weren't enough. They were just incidental. And Dr. Selikoff was an incredibly cool conference in 1964, brought Dr. Huber, who said, we're seeing cancer, and it's not just in these insulators. It's not just with the people that are working with it directly. A large number of individuals are being exposed on an incidental basis. And we are seeing those cancers, and we're seeing those deaths, and we are also gathering information that shows this is not done. Her case revealed a lot of that. That's Rita and Gary when they got married. The two people left in the trial we did the verdict were Hyster and Avon. Hyster made these large international trucks and Hyster trucks that had very large brakes. You have to manipulate brakes, you have to change brakes. Often when you do that work, you cannot see the dust. Dr. Castleman told you that doesn't mean it's okay. With Tyndall lighting, you can see the millions of fibers that got all over Gary's clothes. He worked at McDonnell Douglas and the automotive maintenance garage as a parts man. He didn't do the work, but it got all over him, and he brought it home to his wife and family. It has long been known that when you have these kind of exposures, it's not just the mechanics, but their wives and their children that get sick. But doubt science is incredibly real. Dr. Oliver talked about this. David Michaels has published $50 million paid to Exponent and Chemrisk to go out and say grinding asbestos products with 30% asbestos in it is actually okay. This is a reality still fought every day. That is Rita and Gary when we were together in the courtroom. He was absolutely in the dark when he was working on this and still bore such incredible guilt that somehow he hurt his wife. He had to live with that reality because of them. Avon, my grandma worked for them for 51 years. The company for women. They sold body powders, they sold makeup. Rita put them on her body and face her whole life. They sold baby powders. She put them on her little girl. I did this for 20 years. And when someone told me asbestos was in talc, I said, that's crazy. It turns out that talc grows with asbestos. If you think about a steak, it's like the veins throughout the steak. And when you blow it up, which is what they do, grind it down and put it into a powder, you're putting a carcinogen in a powdered, non-encapsulated product you put on your body and your babies in your home. Why are we just talking about this now? One reason. Industry said it is pure, we use the best talc mines. I've learned a lot about geology and mineralogy. There are three ways talc mines are formed: hydrothermic, regional metamorphism, and contact metamorphism. Regional is the worst. It's not disputed. Guess what most talc companies used? Industrial grade talc and cosmetic products from the worst talc mines, not the best. Second, there were extensive efforts for decades. This goes back to the 50s with the Patel Material Institute to clean asbestos out of talc, to float it, paid manpower for decades to do this, to use reagents to try to make it come out. You cannot do it. The documents we've seen is that this is not controversial. You cannot remove asbestos from talc when it is there. And third, and this is where I disagree with Shep, who's kind of my mentor and hero, so I do that somewhat sparingly. I do think what we do matters. You cannot find body powders with talc anymore in this country. You can elsewhere. And it's still being put on makeup that little girls put on their face every day. Hundreds of tests showing asbestos and talc, tests that date back to the 40s, are in files that only lawyers uncovered because they lied to regulators, they lied to doctors, and they lied to litigants in 2017. Others got those from Johnson & Johnson. They kept them under seal for about 2 years. We then got hundreds of tests from Pfizer showing asbestos and talc. Others got tests from Colgate. And there are now literally thousands showing that this is not some one-off problem. It's a problem today. So when I hear that people are looking to find cures and there's immunotherapy and we're getting better, it makes my heart sing because this is not over. So what do these two very different defendants have in common? This wasn't the asbestos on the clothes. This wasn't the powder she put on her body for 50 years. Her body simply failed. It's from the transcript. The effort right now in the scientific community that I see is to use the history of women to suggest that it is cellular replication error, not external exposures that cause this. That all of these doctors got this wrong, that it's preventable because our bodies simply don't work. That was their joint defense. They hired Dr. Atanus. This is his slide from Wales at Cardiff. They use different studies and they say women have been studied for years, decades in fact. Step one is they, unlike men, are not linked to asbestos. Step two is to conflate idiopathic and spontaneous. The idea that because a woman doesn't know, which is something that's very understandable, to it was her body that failed. And then step three was that it is published repeatedly that women ratio-wise get the mesothelioma in the lining of their abdomen, the peritoneum, much more often than men compared to the pleura. And the reason they bring that up, including, by the way, cases where I'm representing a man who has peritoneal mesothelioma, is because if you breathe in asbestos, it is pretty well understood that to get to the peritoneum, you need greater exposures. So here's the argument. Women not tied to asbestos, and they're getting the cancer in the area where you need more, proof that it is just cellular division error, it is not asbestos. My first questions are, man, that's not a small difference. You're saying that 5 to 9 times more often women's body are failing them. That's not a 10% difference. That's a huge difference. Is there a cellular reason? Is there a genetic reason? Is it something about our organs? Are women just the weaker sex? I mean, what's happening here? And there's literally, and I've talked to dozens of doctors, no answer other than our exposures. I love that Dr. Moline had the same slide because she's like one of my heroes. Those studies, and this is one of the studies that Dr. Atanus looks at, all of them didn't ask about many exposures, including cosmetic talc. And that was by design, right? These companies kept us in the dark until about 5 years ago. There's been an explosion of information since then, including a proposed regulation by the FDA to start looking at this issue. But there is a biologic difference as well. We don't just breathe in talc. Women use it for vaginal dusting, and there is a direct route to your peritoneum if your tubes aren't tied. To me, it is a much satisfactory scientific proposition that just women, when you have women's just 90% of the times their body fail, or they were exposed to something we know they used for decades, but the information doctors needed was hidden. And what the jury found is that completely consistent with science. This is a cumulative dose disease where all of the exposures matter and both were responsible. So Bertram Price, the scientist in the room, look him up, mathematician, says women's disease rates are flat. Clearly this is just spontaneous. He doesn't say it. Look up his website. Hired by W.R. Grace, hired by OI, paid for by defense lawyers. This isn't just affecting cases, which I care about deeply, but health issues now. The FDA on December 27th finally said, we're not going to allow cosmetics to self-regulate. We want rules. And I mention that because even if you have someone you love that was exposed in other ways, there's a whole section of that that talks about there is no safe level. We don't want any type of asbestos. Asbestos includes the amphiboles, and enough is enough. So thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you.